Et
Welcome back to the show, my friends. I am your host, Eric Szilagyi. If you've had an uncomfortable experience and you'd like to have it featured on the show, please get a hold of me at contact.uncomfortable@gmail.com. The world wants to hear your experiences. They want to hear your story. So get a hold of me and let's tell yours on a future episode of Uncomfortable. If you don't already, make sure you follow us on Facebook and Instagram, both at Uncomfortable Podcast 65. And please remember to leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you can. That's the main way that you, the listener, can help get us in the algorithm to get out in front of more people. And with more people listening, that means more great guests coming forward with their experiences. Head over to Uncomfortable Podcast on YouTube and check out the show in its video form. While you're there, make sure you hit subscribe and the notification bell as well. That way you will be made aware every time I upload a video version of the podcast. If you're interested in helping support the show, head over to patreon.com/uncomfortablepodcast770 and check out what we have there for you. Or if a standalone contribution is more to your liking, you can do that as well through Red Circle and their sponsor, this podcast tab. The links for those and the Discord server will be in the show notes below. Bigfoot and Brews and Spirits 2 will be September 14th with the VIP dinner the night before. Both will be held at Sister Lakes Brewing Company in Dowagiac, Michigan. Confirmed. I have speakers Amy Boo from the Olympic Project and her own Project Zoo book, Scott Tompkins from the Bigfoot Mapping Project, Salt Fork State Park's naturalist John Hickenbottom, and special guest author and journalist Chatan Noir. And finally, fan favorite, the Archbishop Christina Rake will round out the paranormal side of things for the day. Most recently, I was able to add on the much anticipated return of everybody's favorite Bigfoot, Bodine. That's right, Bodine will be back with us again this year. Tickets will be on sale no later than the end of the second week of March. I will put out a special announcement as soon as they are available. Tonight's guest is a self-published author, editor, and publisher, native of Lincoln County, Tennessee, and the founder of Elk Valley Paranormal. Pay attention to that name, Elk Valley Paranormal, EVP. She also has several books on Amazon, and we'll get into those in detail during the show. She also is a co-host on LegitPodcast.com's Legit Paranormal Podcast and Legit Paranormal. So, if you're ready, let's get into it. If you will, please give a warm, uncomfortable welcome to Cyn Shrader Hill. Cynthia, welcome to Uncomfortable.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. Thank you. I appreciate you reaching out. Ghost hunting. I love it. It's a lot of fun. Actually, I just booked for May 25th an overnight at a haunted jail in Crown Point, Indiana. I'm going to be going in there with a film crew and myself, and I've just been stocking up on equipment and getting REM pods and all kinds of stuff to go in there. This the jail actually has a distinction of housing John Dillinger for
Nice.
a couple of weeks, and there's actually a Johnny Depp movie where he played Dillinger, and the studio that made the film actually went to this jail, and they have, I believe it's the Universal, I think it's called the Universal cell block, and it's actually the cell block that Universal Pictures built for the movie. It's still in existence, and you can still walk through that area, and I mean, everything looks like massive steel doors and everything, but when you walk up to it and knock on it, it's all wood. It's
wow.
all movie magic, but it's really cool. So we're looking forward to doing that.
Oh, I
Tell
know
me,
you are.
what you've got multiple books, 5 books on investigating, and then you have some true stories out there, a collection.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty prolific writer. Yeah, I gotta assume that you're not just writing about this stuff while sitting in your chair thinking about it. You must be
No.
out there investigating.
There's the four books. There's only one fiction, but four of them are all true stories. The first three are about, or the first two of the nonfiction ones are my investigations, the what my team has done, and some of my friends on in their teams. But there's some from the old hospital here in Lincoln County. There's Lynchburg Haunted Home. There's Hell's Bar Dam. Just different things like that. Interestingly enough, I have got a prison booked in April
Oh,
to
do
go
you?
to. Yeah, I'm going with Eric Freeman Sims and Regina Blatt. Excuse me, to Brushy Mountain.
Oh,
So we're excited about that.
very cool. Very cool. This is going to be a first for us. With the advent of bringing on cameras and just trying to do a proper investigation. It's not my intent to break into Hollywood or to get a new famous show on streaming on Discovery Plus. There's enough of those out there. Um, but what we want to do is we want to do the investigation the right way. We're not looking to produce anything.
Right.
I'm not looking. I've told every one of my guys that are in the unit. My son is one of them, and some close friends. The last thing I want to hear is, "Oh, what was that?" You know, you know. I don't want that. I mean, I just want a good, legitimate, honest investigation. If we
Investigate.
find something,
Yeah.
we find something. If we don't, we don't. It's gonna be cool just to be able to get out there and do it and get it on digital. And it's just something I've always thought about wanting to be able to do. And finally, this is through doing this podcast and meeting so many people, it's finally opened the door for that. So
On that, and then once you get home from the investigation, then that's when the hours of going through all the evidence start. So it's not over once you get home.
well, I'll tell you, we did an investigation. My daughter's boyfriend rents a cottage, and he called me and he said, "Hey man, we go there. I got some like strange shit going on here in this cottage." He's like, "We're hearing voices, and it's just like really uneasy at times, and then other times it's like super super comfortable." And so I think it was last April. I went in there with my podcast equipment. I had two wireless speakers. I had two wired microphones. I had an additional microphone that was placed with a boom hanging right over a landing that he reported hearing footsteps come down the stairway and hit that landing on multiple occasions. So we mic'd that area, and we took turns down in the basement with EMF detectors, and I was recording everything. I had every available uh, mic stream on this roadcaster. Everything was filled, and we had the most electric storm come through. I had never in my life seen as much lightning as we did that night, and I was like, man, this has got to generate something.
Yeah.
And it did. We had some uh, really good experiences, and caught some really good evidence. And it was intended at the end of it, I was going to put it all together and just release it as an audio podcast collection of what we did that night. And when when I uploaded all the audio tracks, and not even attempting to look at the video, but I had six different microphones, and I had 5.5 hours of audio from each mic. And I was like, this is unfathomable. I can't do this. We can't be this good. I mean, the next time around, we're going to have to, I don't even know. Still got everything. And I keep going back to it every once in a while. And I'll get like 20 minutes or a half hour into trying to edit things. And it's like, oh my God. And it's
Yes.
because, my son, he caught some really good EVPs. And um, I had a full blown conversation with something responding to an EMF, where if the answer was yes, it pegged to the green, it peg all the way to the red. If the answer was no, it'd stay green. It was insane. I mean, it followed me up the stairs until I closed the door to the basement, and then it was gone. And we, it was the whole idea of going to this jail is super exciting, and I'm down for it. But I'm like the logistics of trying to figure out how are we going to do this, record it, and be able to get something out is just kind of stymieing me.
Yeah. Yeah. Ev- any kind of investigation, I used to record everything, and got to the point like you did. It's like, oh my gosh, now I've got the three recorders that I've got to go back through and
Mhm.
scour through and listen. And oh, if I hear him tell that joke one more time during the investigate, all that kind of stuff. But I found that for me, what works better now is to keep one recorder going, have the videographer recording, of course, anybody else taking pictures, and doing burst sessions. So I can handle several burst sessions, which they might be up to a minute long, maybe. I don't
Mhm.
like to go over. I really like to do 30 seconds or less, and just ask questions and do burst sessions. I tried the REVP from Paranologies recently, and I had tried it before without any success. And we went last month to, or actually, it was the end of January, to the old Commodore Hotel in Linden, Tennessee. And I thought, I'm going to bring that thing, and I'm going to bring a couple of things that I've not had any success with, and just experiment again, because it was a small group. And I got my first EVP on that REVP. Now, REVP, if you're familiar with it, is an expensive toy. It's just an expensive toy.
Well,
And
I'm familiar with it, but for the listeners, why don't you explain what it is?
yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, the thing I don't like about it is that it does not have big memory. It only carries, I think it's less than 2 minutes or something like that on its memory. It's very short. So if you ask a question of spirit, you don't record yourself asking the question. And where I made a mistake is not recording the question with another recorder at the time. So you ask a question, then you press the button to hopefully catch an EVP from Spirit. And my friend Regina actually asked a question, and it was something about did the man that hangs around the area with the cigar smoke, did he have anything to do with hurting you or something like that? And then I pressed record, and we got back, he knows. So I was ecstatic. I'm like, whoa, okay. So I find, oh, it works. It works. Thank God. I didn't spend all that money and just throw it away, because I have in the past. I've bought a few things and it's just throwing money away. So I do like that. But when I take it on this next investigation, I'm going up to Franklin, Kentucky with Eric and Regina, and we're going to go to Old Stone Jail, the archives, and Octagon Hall. And when I take the EVP back up there, I've got to make sure that I have everything deleted off of it. Otherwise, I'm not going to have enough room to ask any more questions.
It's interesting that I mean, your what you just relayed there kind of segues into something that I wanted to talk to you about. I didn't think we'd get into it this early, but let's go. EVP phenomenon. I know that it is legit. I know that it is something that exists. We've captured it ourselves, and my issue with it, my issue with it is the human brain. And what I mean by that is there is, unless we can find a way in which, much like what you were saying, you're not recording your question, you're only recording the response. But how do you remember what that response was in response to is an issue. But anybody that's involved with the team, whether it's you, the person that's asking the question and recording the response, we are going to have a definite bias because you know what the question was. Your tech guy, if you hand that off to your tech guy, he's going to know what the question was because he was filming the question as it was asked. And when you go back and you listen to EVPs, I've only heard maybe a handful that were so clear, class A, undeniably full sentences that you can be like, holy crap, that I understood every word of. Usually it's something a little less descriptive, needs a little more attention paid to it, or slow it down, or speed it up, or put it in reverse, or applying all kinds of filters to it in your audio software so that you can actually try to make out what is being said. And in these shows that, I love to watch these shows, that there's so many of them on Discovery Plus and other channels. But the mistake that they make, in my opinion, uh, is they will put on the screen what they think they're hearing.
Exactly.
And then you're listening to it, and they give you like 2 or 3 opportunities to hear it. And then, syllable wise, yeah, it matches up and it sounds, and then you're thinking, oh yeah, that's what they said. But, I'm not saying that it's not,
No, several
but I don't.
times, several times I have been watching a show when they put the caption up, and I was like, that's not what I heard.
Nope,
And
me
I'll
too.
close my eyes and listen again, and I'm like, that's not what I heard.
Right.
That is not it.
So
So I'm
I don't know that they're necessarily being disingenuous by it.
right.
There needs to be some way in order to remove the bias from analyzing the actual EVP. And this afternoon, I said this before we started recording. This afternoon, I was like, why can't we get, I don't even know if I should say this out loud, because if
I
somebody
know.
hears it and they
Yeah,
steal the idea,
I know.
um, yeah,
But there
screw it.
should be. Yeah,
There should be a way to put that audio into a software which will replace or enhance what's there, replace parts that are missing because of the digital static that is usually used and recorded when these things are coming through, um, to get a more accurate idea of what the response was. And I've got a great idea, and if I know a couple of guys who dabble in it, so I'm gonna pose this to them,
I think
to
that's a
see.
good idea. Yeah,
But we got to get the bias out of it, and I'm not saying anybody being disingenuous by it. Like, you review that, and you only have your question to base what you think the response was, and it could be completely unrelated.
it could be. Yes, it could be residual. It could be um, anything like that. So, what I know it was not is somebody walking in, a live person walking in the room going, he knows. I know
Right.
it was not that. So it was something that we did catch that was from the other side.
Yeah.
I just don't know exactly who it was, whether or not we'll ever really know who we're talking to. I don't know.
As far as equipment goes, you talk about the EVP, and that's, it's a high dollar piece of equipment. Um, I've got a what the hell's it called? The Zoom. I don't remember what the model number of it is, but it's got the two crossing microphones at the top, and it's really
Yeah.
good, high quality. Some people use it to record their podcasts. I've got one of those. There's, and I think it was probably made most popular by Ghost Adventures. There's a silver Panasonic that's about big enough to fit in a shirt pocket, and for some reason those seem to be very susceptible to picking up EVPs. But if you want to purchase one of those, you can only, because they're not made anymore, you can only find them on eBay. And that recorder that was probably around 35, $40 when it came out, they're going for $500 and $600 a piece.
It's crazy.
You don't need that.
No, no.
But you do need to follow some protocol so that you don't have a lot of background noise. You don't have anything that you're going to be causing whoever's reviewing this evidence to be wasting time listening to, the shuffle of a footstep and trying to figure out what that is versus
Right.
an actual EVP. So what would you recommend? So say that this podcast is going to go out to a number of people who want to go out and try to enjoy this ghost investigating for themselves. As far as recording EVPs, how can they do that within a budget?
I got my first recorder from Walmart. It's a little Sony. I still have it. I've had it for, I've only been investigating since 2013. So I'm late to the game. And I've had that recorder since 2013. It's my standby. I love it.
Is it digital or is it
It's
tape?
digital. It is digital. And I do have a friend though that will only use her analog that has the little tape, the
Yeah.
little cassettes that go. She swears by those. They're very difficult to stay stocked with those little tapes though. It's hard to find.
Right.
So I know she has trouble finding them. So um, it's just easier. Really, truly, whatever works for you is what you should do. And what works for me is just a little digital recorder. I can tape whatever I want to, come back home, plug it into the computer, run it through Audacity is what I use.
Mhm.
And I'm happy with that. So it's what you get comfortable with, how much time you want to put in it, that kind of thing. I now have 3 recorders that I keep one going the entire time. The third is just to have if I need it for another room or a piece of equipment. And I'll tell you about that in just a second. But the other one I use for burst sessions. So I keep one going continually, and I use the other one for just burst sessions, asking quick questions and answer period, and hopefully spirit will talk, going in different rooms or whatever. The third one I use with a piece of equipment that I've not had any luck with yet. I'm still hopeful. It's called a diode. Have you heard of those?
Uh, Describe it to me, because
It
I've been looking into equipment so much lately that I've come across so many things, and some of it's kind of like, I don't think that's
yeah,
real.
yeah. This diode, um, you hook it up to your recorder so that it goes into, let's see, it goes into the microphone, not the headphone jack.
Mhm.
So it goes into the microphone jack. So there's no outside um, anything coming in noise wise, nothing. And this diode has a copper plate, I believe, and I'm not sure exactly what, but the one I have is a little pyramid. It's not a pyramid. It's a little triangle with the diode in the center of it,
Right.
and I think I paid $25 for it. Again, I've not had any success yet, but I'm still hopeful
And it's supposed to
because
it's supposed to do what? It's supposed
it's
to
supposed to knock out anything except EVP. So if a spirit really wants to talk to you, it can pick that recorder to talk into. And we
okay.
know that because, you might have a team of 5 people and everybody is taping, and the spirit will go into
Right. Yeah.
one of the people's recorders that's in the same room with the others.
Right.
So that's always been interesting to me. But this diode knocks out all of the extra noise. So when you plug it into your computer, you're going to see a straight line across the Audacity graph or whatever music or filter you're using to try to find the EVPs. You're going to see a straight graph, except if you captured some kind of EVP, you'll have a blip or a
Interesting.
spike or something like that. Again, I've not been successful yet, but I'm still trying. So we'll see
Well,
what
for
happens.
$20, you're not out that much, but it
No,
would be
no,
cool.
and
It'd be
that was a
cool if it
good
did
thing.
work.
Oh, it would be
What
great.
what about spirit boxes? Spirit boxes give me a problem. They're cool. They're cool. It's a neat idea. They're annoying as hell to listen to. You know, again, there's a bias
Yeah.
because you're asking questions and you're hoping to get responses in real time and real audio instead of recording an impression on a digital surface or a tape.
Mhm.
I've got one. I've heard it work. I just don't know.
I
When you're
love the old PSP7. I love the old one. The new one, I'm not too sure about yet. I've got one because my old one broke, so I had
yeah
to. But I have one of the new ones, and I'm not sold on it completely yet. I'm just not as familiar with it. I think it's going to be okay. The PSP 11, I did not like. I did not like that one at all. I ended up selling mine. Um, Sean, my co-founder of Elk Valley Paranormal, hates the spirit box. And whenever I tell him I'm going to bring it out, he goes, "Oh, God." And I'll say, "Well, we can do the Estes method." Okay, let's do the Estes method. That way I'm the only one listening to the spirit box, and they can ask all the questions they want
right
to, and I'm
right.
listening to the spirit box. So that's been our compromise at our latest investigations. He'll go along with it as long as I do the Estes method.
I
Um,
just had to look up the PSB7, and that's actually the one that I have. So
yeah, that
I'm happy about that.
yeah, that's the one I really like, and it's the one that looks the most like a transistor radio, the
Yep.
little small one.
Yep.
The newer one it's like a red piece of equipment, and it's horizontal instead of upright. I don't
A friend of
like it
mine
as
a
well.
friend of mine let me borrow that
Hmm.
before I bought mine,
The new one,
and the new one.
okay,
And I did have something come through on that, and I'll tell you about it once you get done
okay, yeah,
discussing that.
and I'm just not as familiar with it as I was the PSP 7. I really like that first one, the PSP 7.
Hmm.
I can that's really what got me to investigate. Hearing that spirit, hearing the transistor, everything going back. And the way I use mine is I sweep as fast as possible, whatever the sweep rate is, and I put it in reverse.
Right.
And so it's sweeping
That,
constantly in reverse. And at night, I'll use the AM station because there's really not a lot of AM
right.
that should be on at that time, right?
Right. Right.
So
So
it's just
you're
easier,
less likely to get parts of words.
right? Or songs, or
Hmm.
whatever's. on the airwaves. So that's what I found works for me.
I
What did
was
you?
I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to ask you whether you use a fast sweep or a slow sweep or in reverse or in forward. Those were things that was interested in because I
Mhm.
agree that doing it in reverse makes the most sense so that you're not contaminating your evidence with partial things that might happen to line up with other things as they come through the sweep,
Right.
and give you a false reading. But we used that during the investigation of the cottage that I was talking about earlier, and I actually had gone. My daughter's boyfriend Cortland was up in his bedroom, and he went up there with a an EMF detector. He's got a weird, funky little closet. It's almost like a walk-in closet, but it's got like a really narrow door on it until you get in it. And he had put the EMF detector on the floor in there, and I walked up. I announced that I was coming, so he knew I was coming up the stairs. I came up, came in the room, and he looked at me and he's like, "Dude," he's like, "the lights have been just going crazy until you stepped foot on the stairway coming up." And he's like, and then it stopped. So I sat down with him on the edge of his bed. We're both looking at the EMF detector that's only lit up green, and we're not getting anything. And I was like, let's get the spirit box out, and we set it up. And the cottage is fully furnished, and it's owned by a family that lives within a community that is owned by a ministry. And it's I hate to say that like overly religious stuff is creepy, but the
It can
amount
be.
of the amount of religious stuff in this house is kind of creepy. I mean, they have like an old shaker style bookcase that's probably 10 feet long and 3 shelves high with these nice glass fronts on it. And I bet there must be 300 books about God and spirituality and
Wow.
Christianity. And I mean, it's every book. I'm like, good Lord, man. You know, a cooking book, a recipe book, something in there, but no,
No.
everything's about God. And, I kind of put that in the back of my head. And while we were up there and we turned the spirit box on, I made contact with something down in the basement, and I kept getting conflicting whether it was male or female. And then it started to become apparent that I think we were dealing with one of each. And while I was up there in the bedroom, we turned it on, put it to the side of Cortland, and I continued to ask the same questions. I said, "Are you a man? Are you a female?" And it said, "I'm a man." And Cortland looked at me, and I was like, and he's like, "It said I'm a man." And as soon as he mouthed the words, "I'm a man," I got a girl's voice say a name, and I cannot remember what it was, but for the sake of saying it, says Mary. Um, and then I was like, "Holy crap!" And it was decidedly different tone of voice, So I'm like, oh, maybe we are dealing with a male and a female. And then I asked, are you comfortable in this place because there's so much religious effigy in here, so because there's so much about God and spirituality, and that belief are you comfortable here because of all that? And the next word that came out was Jesus, but when it came out, it was Cortland's voice, the
Oh,
guy that
wow.
was sitting next to me.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he's like, "Dude, that sounded like me." And I was like, "You goddamn right. That
Yeah.
sounded exactly like you." Um, so yeah, that was our experience with the one that you were talking about, the red one that's more horizontal and looks like a toy transistor radio. But
I tell you too, those mimics that sound like somebody on your team
mhm,
will freak you out.
yeah, it sounded just like him.
Yeah. Yeah. I've
And
had one that I know Sean was not in the room. He had gone down. He might have been up on another floor in the old hospital, and I was in the maternity area with a couple other team members, and later, and I knew exactly who was in there because we would ask questions later. When I was going through all of the audio, Sean's voice came through as an answer to one of the questions. And I was like, wait, Sean. No, Sean was, Sean was not there. So I think, and I don't know if we have a lot of practical joking ghosts, but possibly. And I just wonder if some of them that like especially at some of the busier locations that a lot of people are in and out all the time, if some of the ghosts get kind of bored and like, oh good, here comes a good team, let's you play so and so and I'll be the, and then we'll do the good cop bad cop kind of thing, do they have kind of things like
Sense
that
of
going
humor.
on? Yeah, yeah. I've heard a couple of EVPs. One was from the old Lynchburg haunted home, and another was at a residential investigation that we did, and they were laughing at us. The spirits were actually laughing at us, and the one at the residential area, Sean said, did anyone just say so and so? And we all said no. He said, okay, possible EVP, because he was marking it on his recorder. He was marking it. And this one of the spirit goes, oh, they are so funny. And you just like, you could just see him roll his eyes like,
Yeah.
but I guess, you know, we all have different personalities, so they can too.
Yeah. We had done it was actually the first investigation that we had ever done. And, it was right in the height of, ghost adventures and ghost hunters. And, that seemed to be the family thing to do, is sit and watch those on whatever nights that was. And, we had some kids over at the house for the weekend, and the kids all wanted to go ghost hunting. So we had a very small, very old, cemetery that was about 20 minutes away from us, at Barren Lake Cemetery. And so we went there, and, I had a discussion with the kids. It was my two kids and probably four others. And I said, listen, we're in a place of reverence here. This is where people were laid to rest. We're not here to walk over the graves. We're not here to be, hooting and hollering and having a party. Let's be respectful, and, let's just try to be as unobtrusive as possible, and let's just see what we come up with. And I've talked about this in other episodes. I got some really good evidence. And my daughter and I had an orb that appeared out of nothing and just kind of manifested, lit up. It was a little smaller than a golf ball, kind of a whitish, not super bright, but whitish glow to it, with like a blue halo around it, and it just zipped around really quick, and then poof, it was gone. But my son was walking around with his voice recorder open on his iPhone, and he was doing EVPs. And it was funny to go back and listen to it, because he's kind of nervously saying, does anybody here have a message? We can try to get it to your loved ones or something, and he was just going on and on. And he got one, and it was pretty dang clear. And I put it on the computer and I listened to it, and I was like, I'm not telling my kid about this, because this is going to freak his ass out.
Oh,
And it basically, what it said was, you don't belong here.
oh,
But it was like I couldn't tell if it was a man. I couldn't tell if it was a woman, but it was hushed. And I got when I listened to it, even, a number of times of listening to it, the impression I got was like it was an older woman, old, like grandma, type woman. Not not being mad, not being angry, not being aggressive, just being like, this isn't our place. You don't belong here. Just
Just
it
matter of
was
factly.
yeah, it wasn't a warning or, get out or anything like that. It was just, you don't belong here. And when I heard that, I was like, yeah, we didn't belong there. That wasn't our place. Um, but again, I made sure that we were very respectful, and hopefully we didn't upset anyone. But like, going back to equipment wise, what are some must haves if you're going to go and not just not just to traipse around a haunted location just for shits and giggles and hoping that you get scared. If you're actually wanting to collect some evidence, what are some must haves for without breaking the bank?
Right. I would say definitely some kind of small recorder. You can just throw it in your pocket and go anywhere and everywhere with that. Um, you might want to have a small notebook with you taking notes. Some people do that. Other than that, a camera. Our phones now have really good cameras. So it's not really necessary now to have a just a camera. You
Right.
can just take your phone with you. However, if you're doing recording or something on the phone, just know that you really need to have it on airplane mode. So no extra stuff comes in. A text message or
Oh,
phone
okay.
call or
Okay.
something like that messes up what you're trying to record.
Right.
So if you are using your phone during an investigation, always turn it on airplane mode. Um, and sometimes phones can actually set off some of the other pieces of equipment, like a K2 or
Yeah.
anything like that. So you've got to be careful with a phone anyway. But the cameras on phones now are so good that you can just use your phone camera. However, when you are taking pictures, it's better to take two or three
Three has
at the
always been what I
exact
do. Yeah.
yeah, the exact same spot. Don't move. Just go ahead and click three times and move on to your next thing before you aim and take another picture. But always take two to three. And yeah,
And
I'm kind of like you. That three is is a really good number. It's a
flash or
lot
no
to go
flash?
through. But,
Flash or
um,
no flash?
depending on where you are, because spirits don't care what time of day it is, so you can actually go during the day to some of these haunted locations and take pictures. So you don't need a flash. Um, if you are using a flash, you've got to be super careful not to move, especially in a really darkened area. If you're using a camera and you've got the shutter speed slowed down, if you even breathe,
Yeah.
you could cause some kind of distortion in the camera lens or whatever. Um, and just
And the
know
other
that
and the other thing is, going into these places, they're usually dusty, they're cobwebby and not very well taken care of. And good Lord, please, before you do this, go online and look at some of the cause and effects of orbs, because, you know, a piece of dust, anything that reflects light, especially if you're using some kind of infrared lighting system,
right,
the wings of a moth, a fly, anything, any bug, any moisture in the air, anything is going to reflect infrared light, and it's going to look like you got a million orbs in front of you, and
exactly.
all it is dust, guys.
Exactly. Or when you go on vacation and you're taking that beautiful sunset photo and you take it and then you look at it later and you've got this tiny, tiny green or blue orb in the
Yep.
picture and oh, I've got a spirit. No, that's
Nope.
just a camera flare. It's kind of bouncing back on your camera
Yep.
inside the inside works of the lens and everything. So
And those are
Just
usually a pretty good telltale of that is if the sun, it doesn't even have to be in frame of your picture, but if the sun is anywhere in front of you, to the side, to the left, to the right, or in front, and you get a blue or green orb that shows up on your picture, you can almost track at a almost perfect 45-degree angle. If you
mhm.
follow it to that corner, that's where the sun is.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So, and that's just one of the things when I first got started in this. That's just one of the little tiny lessons that you learn. Because I was going to a friend of mine going, look, 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 this, I had a spirit with me. No, that's the camera. Explain
Yeah.
that to me. So, yeah, it's just one of those little lessons that we learn along the way. And we're all still learning. So, this is not an exact science. And you can actually learn from someone just coming into the field as well as somebody that's been in for several years. So they might have an idea that you hadn't thought of yet. So it's always good to just stay open as far as ideas about investigating and trying to get evidence, because that's really what we're all doing. We're trying to get evidence of the other side. And
Yes, absolutely.
hopefully we can. Hopefully we
What about
can.
like with the advent of Amazon? You've got so many things at your fingertips as far as being able to purchase for relatively low cost. What about like um as far as video cameras? You know, you're obviously you're going to want something with night vision capability. Um, it used to be everything was in that weird neon greenish color. Now everything is seems to be more in a black and white. Full spectrum. Have you ever messed with full spectrum cameras? Have you had any? I
I've
mean,
got I've got a full spectrum camera that I use IR or full spectrum lighting and both sometimes with. So I've actually done pretty good with those.
really?
If you go on my website, elkvalleyparanormal.com, you can watch a video, and it's the one you'll know it's the full spectrum camera because it's purple.
Hmm.
It's like a pinkish purple film. It's a short clip of something that my videographer Billy caught in the old hospital. It's what we call the creeper, and to me looks like a cross between the Michelin Man and the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. He's like 3.5 feet tall, and he's white, but he's like pieced together like lumps and bumps and stuff. It's very odd, and he did not want to be on camera, and so he moves really quick. So I slowed the film down so I could get a still of this guy. And there's a still photo of him. You can go and see the still first so you know what you're looking for in that video because he does move quick.
Yeah.
And he's all over that hospial. So there's several
Interesting.
things. Yeah.
What about REM pods?
I like them. I got, and again, I think this one was from Paranologies too, one of the 360s that you can watch which way a spirit is coming into a room or if it's going around it. I like that. So I've been
Really?
experimenting with it. It's got spokes that stick out all the way around it. So it looks like um, actually it looks like a spaceship with spokes coming out of it that would light up. And it would track any kind of interference in the magnetic field as it moves in a circle. If it goes from one side of the room to the other, you can watch which way it's going. So that's kind
Interesting.
of interesting. Um, my Sean's got a REM pod on his millimeter. On the
Yeah.
it's one of those that's got that included. He likes that. I've I've got a couple of other friends that have
Doesn't
just the
doesn't
REM
that
pods.
doesn't that cause an issue though? Because
I would think so.
you can make a REM pod go off by putting your hand too close to it, and if it's a millimeter and you're carrying the millimeter in your hand, could you not essentially be causing it to go off?
Hmm. He actually does really good in debunking. the reason he and I got together in the first place is that he is such a skeptic. It's ridiculous. It's completely ridiculous. And I was like, no, dude, there's really some stuff out there. Oh, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Now, he's not as skeptical now that he's been with me in my group, Elk Valley Paranormal. I founded that in 2014 after I was in another group. But he came across with me as the skeptic, and he would debunk anything and everything, which everyone needs to know how to do anyway. But he's extra good at it. So he can go into someone's home and speak about a fear cage. And a fear cage is where all of you got extra power coming, extra energy around. You might have the microwave setting off things and the refrigerator and washer dryer, just whatever. There might be something that's not grounded. Your old wiring sometimes will
Yeah.
cause fear cages. So, just depending on where and what the situation is. He's really
That,
good
that,
about finding
you talk
things.
about the fear cage. That term doesn't use enough. Fear cage, but
No.
I mean, that my initial thoughts when we were going to the cottage to do this investigation, my initial thought was that what he's dealing with is because the cottage was built in early 1920s. It was going to be bad wiring, additions that were put on where the wiring wasn't up to code, and that was going to be an issue. Um, so everybody got out of the house. I went through and I did a sweep of the entire house. So we got a baseline, and I didn't. It's not that I didn't trust anybody. I just wanted to make sure that I was the one that was doing it, so there was no confusion. And I was shocked that I was going up close to the outlets and everything, and we just weren't getting anything. Come to find out that the house had been renovated and basically taken down to the bones, and then everything was rewired and redone. So all the electrical was up to code, and there was no issue.
I
Um,
wonder then if the renovations are what caused the uproar.
it's
Maybe ripping out
possible,
the old
yeah,
one. Yeah.
possible. Interesting stuff. So, like when we're sitting here on the weekend, or when we're bored on a Wednesday night, and we pop on Discovery Plus and choose one of 43 different paranormal shows to watch. In your estimation, what would you consider to be trash evidence? What are we seeing in these shows that is like, when related to actually going and doing the stuff yourself? What are things that you don't pay attention to this? That's not.
I don't watch as much now as I used to because I know it's all entertainment now.
Mhm.
Um, I will tell you that Ghost Adventures came into the county to investigate the old hospital.
Oh, in your
And
your county.
yes, and so
Interesting.
you can look for the Ghost. I cannot remember what episode, and it's been a few years back, but it's the old Lincoln County Hospital in Fayetteville, Tennessee. They came in with a 4-day shoot, and they had a script. And until that point, I had been going, no, 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 they're really doing it. They're really doing it. No, they really have a script. They really have a script. And the
Really?
script that they had nothing to do with the area. It was just someone had looked up something really quick about a couple of deaths in the county, and they wrote a story about that. Had nothing to do with the old hospital. After the third person told them, look, you don't need a script. You don't need a script. Just
Right.
go in there and record. That's all you got to do. Because it is to me, and I've been to several different places. It is one of the creepiest and most haunted buildings I've ever been in. I was born there, and I've
Oh,
had
really?
relatives die there, and I've worked there for a little while. a lot of people have ties to this old hospital. Um, and I'll go ahead and say the new one's haunted too. The new one's haunted too. But the old one was closed. The final day was closed the day before 9/11. So it closed on 9/10/01.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it was kind of a strange coincidence there. But they came in with the script. After the third person told them, you don't need one, just go in there and investigate, they looked at each other and said, maybe we should. Thanks. And so they did. And actually, that episode is one of their better ones because I can vouch for what they did, what they saw. The only thing I have issue with, well, there's two things in the whole thing they did of their investigation. One was the shadow figure that they caught in the basement. I think that was somebody walking outside. I
Okay.
truly do. There's a couple of windows down there. It used to be a physical therapy place. Way back, it used to be a morgue, so people would come there. But it was an educational room down there, different things. But there was a couple of windows, and that place is so in a spot of the county that people are always walking. And I think somebody walked by, especially when they knew that there's something going on at the old hospital.
So
They're
they
going to
were
go up and
interested.
walk. Yeah, yeah. So that I'm going to throw that out right away. I don't think that was a real shadow figure. I've seen them there, but not in that basement. I will tell you that. I don't. I think that was a person outside. The second thing they did was he mentioned, since there was a little girl ghost, he said, "I have some candy for you." Well, dude, anybody in the South knows that you don't go up to a man that says, "You want some candy, little girl?"
Here, here,
You
get in
don't.
my van. I want to
Yeah,
take you for a ride.
you don't do it. So I kind of roll my eyes at that. Everything else they did was pretty good. Um, they, at the very beginning when they came in, they of course were their very dramatic selves, and Zach especially. So Jamie, the owner, had said specifically, "I do not want to be on camera. I will not be on camera." And what do? They turn the camera on and immediately turn it to him, and he looks like a serial killer. He's so mad. And so you see the owner of the hospital is he honestly looks like a serial killer, but it's because he was so upset with them. Um, they walked in, he was mic'd, they were asking him questions, and he wanted to be off camera, of course, but that didn't happen. He, the roof on the door, the roof doorway slammed. It was not closed. It slammed. The wind hit it. And Zach did his normal, "Did you hear that? What was that? Did you hear it?" And someone said, "Yeah." And Jamie said, "That's the door upstairs." "No, no. What? There it is again." Because it slammed again. The
Yeah.
wind was hitting it. It did about 3 times. And they said, "We got to go check it out. We got to go. We're rolling. We're rolling." And as they ran by Jamie to go upstairs, Jamie forgot he had his microphone on and said, "It's just a door, dumbass." His sound crew, of course, snickered. And we know if the sound crew heard it, so did Zach.
Yeah.
But it was just the door upstairs. So that was the funny part of the whole investigation. Just know that when you are looking at entertainment on any of these shows, it is entertainment. They are trying to come in and get more views. So they have to produce something that
Right.
gets your attention. And it might be a shadow figure, it might be something, um, that they hear. They're not sure what it is. They might get some kind of an anomaly, some kind of light or something. And that it can be a mysterious kind of thing that will keep you coming back. but it is to get you to come back, all of it.
Yep.
They set four days aside for that, whatever it's 40 45 minute show with the commercials built in,
Yeah.
so 4 days to do that. They left on the third day because they had everything they wanted, and left the sound crew and the photographers going around with the drone and, doing,
Getting
capturing
B-roll.
some extra. Yep, get that B-roll. And they went actually south to the Rocket Center in Huntsville. So they took a little vacation. So what you see in that 40 to 45 minutes on that show has taken place over a 4 day period,
Yeah.
at least for them. And I would think for most of them.
Probably not far off.
No.
What I guess, and that's a great story. I'm glad you told it. But maybe what I was asking, as far as what do you consider trash evidence? Not necessarily what we're seeing in these shows, but evidence that people can come across, seemingly to be evidence that they can come across while doing these types of investigations, and may throw most people, but in reality it's trash. You shouldn't be paying attention to it. It may be being a little too vague, but
No, some, and I might not be capturing or answering exactly the way you're trying to get the point across to me. But one thing I know that trips people up a lot are the doorway cams that they'll have. I'll get a video sent to me, and they'll say something is going on at my house. Something is going on. Well, you got something tripping up your camera outside. That's what's going
mhm.
on. Another person sent me a video and said, "We've got these strange lights that are coming up in my backyard." Strange lights? What's going on? So she sends me a video too, actually, and they were, see, tiny lights that were stayed exactly a certain distance apart. It would be all over the place, but those two lights would stay horizontal and exactly the same distance apart. And I wrote her back and I said, "I think that's a drone." And she said, "Oh no, we don't have drones around here." What? Everybody's got drones
Yeah.
around you. I mean, the drones are everywhere, but she was mad that I suggested anything but paranormal. Well, you've got to really dig sometimes, and you really need to try to debunk everything you can. If you hear that creak in your house, is it the house settling? Is it the cat that jumped down and hit a certain part of the floor that's a little weak, or something? Try to debunk everything you can. Did I answer that?
Yeah.
Getting closer.
I guess, there's the evidence is so subjective. I mean, you may have four people on your team, and you catch something, and it's very obvious to you that whatever this was spiritual, and to your camera guy over here, it was a creak in the floor, and to
Right.
this guy, he dropped his comb out of his back pocket. And it's just so subjective that
And
you
at that point, if you've got somebody coming in saying, "No, I dropped my comb," and the other guy says, "No, that was a footstep. I stepped on something," then you've got to throw that evidence out.
yeah, yeah.
You cannot use it as paranormal at that point. And that's good. That's good that you can narrow things down, because that's just part of debunking.
Well, it's actually taken a look at it. I mean, I don't want to say that it's a scientific method of
It
but
is though.
you're being more scientific than just going by your gut reaction. And I
Which
agree.
is
I
what
think
you want.
that's
Yeah.
very important to, I mean, again, it's all what you want out of it. If you're going into a place and you're looking to get scared or have the people around you get scared, yeah, I mean, it's pretty easy to do. All you have to do is have a creepy place, and
Yep.
anything can scare the hell out of you. So,
Yep.
um, but so REM pods are a little on the expensive side. I've seen people using divining rods
Okay.
to basically ask spirit questions, and if they cross themselves, then the answer is yes. If they move apart, it's no. Now, I know that divining rods have been used for eons for finding water, and that they do work.
Mhm.
My kids bought me a set of divining rods, a nice, expensive pair, for Christmas this year. And I was like, wow, this is awesome, Um, but to be able to hold those in a manner that you're not causing them to move is more than difficult.
Yes.
And I don't see the value of it. I
But
mean, I saw someone on TikTok who, like, she posts something every day and she's sitting there with them and she's asking spirit questions, and she's getting answers, and I'm like, they are so they are so easy to manipulate just by, I mean, it's not even detectable on camera to see that you're moving your hands, and they're going to move.
exactly.
What's your
You've
idea on
got
them? You
to,
could,
the way I found that I can use those is be up against a wall with my elbows tight and really controlling my breathing. Otherwise, they're going to be all over the place. Um, we have used them to actually witch to find the exact location that a spirit was, the actually it was a hospital room that the little girl was in, and it took us right to it and actually turned to it. um, my friend Sarah brought this up the other day, saying that, even though we don't know that we're doing it, our hands are moving all the time.
yep.
And power of suggestion, even if we don't know we have it, it can it cause the rods to move? Possibly, possibly. Same thing with pendulums. So, because I was
Right.
loving using a pendulum, but what I'm about to order is a stand that holds the pendulum, so I'm free from it. I'm not holding on to it, and as long as there's not air pushing it, maybe, hopefully, we can get a spirit to answer yes, no, maybe, ask another question, things like that. So there are holders for those pendulums, and I would be happier with one of those
Mm-hmm.
than the spirit rods, honestly.
It, that set of divining rods that my kids bought me,
Mhm.
actually, it has a pendulum in it as
Does
well.
it?
Uh-huh. And I was like, then I was both hands, and then it's like both elbows
Right,
touch, and I'm like,
right.
this is impossible.
They're fun though. They're fun. And if you use them with other pieces of equipment and you get the same answers, well then you can use them
Confirmation.
for confirmation. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think alone, if you're just using those, it's not enough. But if you add that with something, if you maybe you catch an EVP at the same time on your digital recorder, maybe you catch an anomaly that you can't explain in your photograph at the same time, things like that. So just try to get confirmation where whatever you're doing. Try to get more than one thing to say, "Yep, that's different. That's it." It's still you're still never going to be able to say that is definitely a spirit, because this is not an exact science. We can't narrow everything down and
Right.
say, "Yep, that's a spirit." It's all you can say is, "Well, I can't explain it, so the only thing I can say it is outside the normal." That's all I got.
What are your thoughts on a Ouija board?
As long as you are trusting the person you're doing it with to not push, again, can can we push without knowing it? Possibly. I think there are some boards you can get that you don't have to touch the planchette. I think so. I would be more inclined to using one of those. I have done a talking board with my friend Mark, who does the covers of my books and illustrations, and we wrote the fiction book together. He's my go-to when I've got any kind of question whatsoever. And he made his own spirit boards. He blessed them. He anointed them to his energy so that it's not a store-bought thing or a flea market buy or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he controls what comes in, what goes out. He's got his spirit guides with him, and it just seems to work. I trust him, and I trust doing a session with him, and we've gotten some amazing results with that. Um, I worry about people going out to yard sales or flea markets and just buying up the Ouija boards because they might not be closed. You never know, and you could have things popping out that you don't want popping out.
Yeah. Do you think they're? I want to use the word dangerous, but maybe that's not the right word.
They can be. I think they can be. It just depends on, um, I guess, what you're trying to get out of it. If you are so intent in getting spirit response, then I think you're susceptible to being tricked. And we have tricksters that we've dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
All of us have in this community that will pretend to be something that they're not. Um, like something coming through that says it's a little girl and isn't a little girl.
Yeah.
Um, Something darker, and you don't want to have that issue. Some I think some of the horror stories from Ouija is that a person has talked to spirit and um, acknowledged that this is a young girl, a young boy they're talking to. It's a grandma they're talking to, and they talk to them every day. It's the same spirit, and then all of a sudden they're having problems. Well, it's because that wasn't what it was saying it was. So I don't. It can be dangerous. It can be dangerous, and you should never ever do any of this by yourself ever. You shouldn't. It's just for safety reasons. Have
Do you
someone with
think
you.
do you think it's a component of the board itself, or is it this seemingly a ritual that you're doing to initiate uh, the conference with spirit? Do you think is it necessary to have the board?
No, I don't think so, because I think honestly that a recorder is the same as a Ouija board. It's
Do you
all
really?
spirit communication. Yeah. And recorder, pendulum, um, divining rods, um, anything like that where you're talking to spirit, trying to get communication, you've got to always remember to protect yourself, to be safe while you're doing it, and then when you're finished with it, to always close it. So that's one of the things people forget, is closing their session on even the voice recorder. You should always record once you're done asking questions. Say thank you. I'm turning this off now. We're done, or something, or say an ending prayer, anything like that. Whatever resonates with you, but just be safe and close it. Close it, because otherwise you can still have things pop through, and you might not want them. I've had things pop through emails, and that was scary as you know.
Really?
Yes, that
How does
that's
that
one.
work?
That was one of the freakiest things. It actually that shook me up so bad that I thought, I can't do this anymore. I don't know what just happened. I got to call Mark. Got to talk to him, and he calmed me down. But I we had done an investigation at a woman's house, and her friend found out. Her friend was so involved in going on haunted walks and, haunted houses, whatever she could find. She was very interested in it. And she found out that we had come, and she reached out to me because I did the audio. So she said, I need you to help me. Nobody is believing me, and tell me what's in this film. Well, there was nothing. I saw nothing paranormal in this video clip. And I said, you don't have any audio with it, so I can't tell you about the audio. So immediately it was like within an hour and a half, I don't know, very short while, she had sent me 5 clips, one from her kitchen, one bathroom, living room, uh, bedroom, and her closed car. So she had gone down to her car, put a recorder in, turned it on, and stepped outside it. And then, so she recorded about 2 minutes worth at each of these spots. The only one I had to throw out was the one, I think it was in the living room or the bedroom, one of the two, and it was too close to the radio. So all I heard was the radio song coming through, and that's it. I had to throw it out. But the others I got, even in her car, that said something to the effect of, they're not going to believe you. One of the things was, we're going to get you. Uh, you can't be rid of us. Just, things like this.
Yeah.
Just, not uh, forceful, scary, but a little ominous. And so I sent those back to her, and she said, oh my gosh, my brother wants to talk to you. Why? And she said, he's a cop. She said, I keep telling him I'm being stalked, and you're the only one that can prove to you, can prove that I'm being stalked. I'm like, what is going on here? What is going on? So I I said, okay, I'll talk to him. So this police officer calls me, and he said, what did you find? And I said, I just found the voices that your sister sent me. And he said, this is incredible. He said, I've been thinking she's lying the whole time. So she's really being stalked. I said, why? What is stalking? Who's stalking who? What's going
Mhm.
on? I said, these are voices that I found in the different spots of her home and in her car. She had been seeing these cloaked figures everywhere.
Oh,
And
no kidding.
yeah, I mean, she would be going to bed at night and happen to look out the window and see these cloaked figures on the next house on the roof, just looking at her. Or she would go to a movie theater and sit down to watch the movie, and this cloaked figure would get up out of its seat, walk by her, and just stare at her. And so she was being stalked by something, but it wasn't human. And he was telling me all this, and I said, okay, so what I found for you are spirit voices. And they know that nobody believes her. And they know that they can keep doing this. So somebody needs to listen to this girl. And he said, can you come down? It was too far to go. I offered to help them find another group
Yeah.
and he said, what do we need to do? He said, I don't believe in this stuff. He said, you're the first person that's brought any of this to light so that we can vaguely understand it. And I said, she's being haunted by some really, really intelligent spirits. And they're out to get her. And if you don't listen to her, they're going to drive her crazy. Honestly, they're going to drive her. She needs some help. She needs help. And I can't do that, but I can help you find somebody. I said, her entire residence needs to be cleansed. She needs to be cleansed. Um, Anybody that spends time with her needs to know what's going on. They need to she had filed umpteen reports at the police station of stalking,
No kidding.
and it was all spirit. So fast forward this. I talked to him, helped him with the situation, told him what needed to be done, told him who he could find, that kind of thing. And he thanked me for it. And he said, this is just the weirdest thing. He said, I just don't believe in this kind of stuff. My religion keeps me from believing that. I said, I understand. I totally get it. But your sister needs some help. So he took that into consideration and got her some help. That evening, to completely different subject, my husband and I got into a little spat. It was a stupid little spat. We got over it really quick, had nothing to do with anything paranormal. And uh, in the meantime, the girl had sent me two more EVPs, or two
Okay.
more recorded things she wanted me to find out what they said. And I was like, oh, I can't do it tonight. I can't do it tonight.
So
So I closed my computer.
she was actually hearing something in those videos, or she was hearing something
She,
in
but she didn't
person.
know. She didn't know what they were saying. She could hear mumbling,
Okay.
but she was seeing them everywhere. Everywhere this girl went, she saw these cloaked figures,
Yeah.
and just really weird. Two or three of them, and they were everywhere. Everywhere
Okay.
she went, she was being tormented. So, anyway, the next night, I thought, oh, let me get these two recordings done, and so I opened one up, and it said, called her by name and said, "You're never going to get rid of us." And then the next little blip of the EVP said, um, "You you can't get rid of us." Something about nobody can help you.
Damn.
And so I finished that one, and then I opened the second one. The second one was different. The second one were the same voices, but this one was to me. This one said my name and
Oh,
said they could help me come down, and they would take care of the situation that my husband and I had argued about the night before. And
They referenced the argument you had the night before.
yes, yes. And I don't know how that happened. And I I I told my husband, my husband does not do paranormal stuff. He's just now starting to go places with me. But I said, "Can you hear this?" And he said, "I hear your name." And I said, "Okay, you did hear my name." And he said, "Yeah." He said, I don't know what they're saying after that." But I said, "Okay." So I shut the computer down. I sent her the first one I'd finished. I didn't send her the second one because that one was not to her, and told her that I would not be able to help her anymore. That
Yeah,
that was
I'm
all I
out.
could do. That's
I'm
all I can
out.
do. Yeah, yeah. I don't know what happened. So, um, an hour or so went by, and I'm freaking out because that. How did that happen? We had an argument the night before, and the spirit that she had sent me then, she sent me those that day before, and I didn't open them to the next night. How did they come through that email? So I called Mark and I said, "Mark, I don't know what just happened. I don't like it, and I don't know if I need to stop everything I'm doing. What do I need to do?" And told him what it was, and he said, "Okay, calm down. First, calm down." He said, "It's like a parlor trick." And I said, "What?" And he said, "You didn't do any kind of meditation or anything before you opened that, did you?" And I said, "No, I was just working with EVPs." And he said, they came through, they can read your aura. He said it's a trick that they play just to get into your head and intimidate you. He said, but if you've not done any kind of protective prayer, meditation, or even, taking a little bit of salt and swallowing it, if you've not done any kind of protection, they can read your aura for up to about 48 hours, I think he said. And so he said, no matter what kind of work you're doing with spirit, always make sure you're prepared. Always make sure you're protected, even if you white light yourself really quick in the shower. Always do that. So I've not ever had that happen again. Thank God. Because I tell you what, that just about threw me through the computer itself.
Yeah,
I got a really good story out of it, but geez, that scared me.
that would have freaked me out as well. I'm, I've I've had a number of paranormal experiences through my life. Um, you know, uh, and I don't understand why, because I'm not. I've been told by multiple sensitive people that I'm an empath, and yes, I'm very empathetic to people. Um, but I've had paranormal things happen throughout a good portion of my life. And I just started doing this podcasting about the paranormal with people's having experiences like yourself. Um, you know, not quite 3 years ago. And the more that I the more that I immerse myself, that there is truth to, like, the longer you stare into the darkness, you start you get their attention, and they start looking back at you.
Yeah.
And that's an uncomfortable place. Uncomfortable. See what I did there? It's an uncomfortable place to be, in your head, when you know that, I mean, I'm not in any way trying to threaten or to expose, or, you know, I am not going anywhere and trying to summon or do. I don't engage in any kind of rituals. The the only kind of ritual I would engage in is, a protective, uh, ritual for myself, whether it be a little bit of meditation, a little bit of prayer, or light blast myself before I engage in anything. But um, it's a creepy thing when you recognize that they know you're there.
Hmm. And the more you do it, it's like you have an antenna on you that they're drawn to now.
Yeah,
And I have been in a couple of places that, I might be coming back for the reveal of, what I investigated, what I found. And they'll say, she's back with notes and things like
yeah,
that. So there, there's a lot out there that are very, very intelligent. And then there's some things out there that are completely residual. We have one at the old hospital that I've never gotten to speak to. I've never heard her, but we've all smelled her. She's got this god awful Avon 1970s rose gardenia, some kind of really loud perfume, and she's around when you smell that. But
yeah.
other than that, we've never had any kind of interaction with her. So we just feel she's residual.
It's such a strange thing. It's so fascinating. I've talked to a gentleman. He was one of my really early interviews. Was basically a demonologist.
Mm,
Had been trained by the Catholic Church, and he was, I don't know if the word licensed is right, but he was able to perform the minor rite of exorcism, not the major rite.
mhm.
But his life started out doing investigations with his wife and spooky houses, all. And he got addicted to EVPs.
Yeah.
It was, and I've heard other people who, once they start getting these things, they just cannot let go of it.
Mhm.
It's like a competition with themselves to see what they can get next. And
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's good to be open. I think it's good to be skeptical. I think it's good to have a good critical uh, view of what you're doing, what you're experiencing.
Mhm.
Uh, don't go into it being like, oh my god, everything's a ghost. I mean, or else you're going to wind up, everything's a portal to hell and everything's
Right.
demonic.
Right.
Uh, but it's kind of scary. I don't notice it in myself at all. It's not something that I'm addicted to. I'm addicted to conversation, so I enjoy talking about this stuff. But to become addicted to something that you're getting from a, a spirit, it
Mhm.
just seems like it doesn't seem like there's any good end to that. You
No. Yeah.
know,
It seems like you could be drawn in a lot to the darker side of it
and I wonder
easily.
if that is a component to it. Is that like you talk about the trickstery stuff and the things that come through and misrepresent themselves as being a little girl when they're really not.
Hmm.
Is that an intentional thing? Are they trying to draw you into that because then you are more susceptible to wh- what
Personally,
they're bidding or
personally, I think that they do that intentionally for one or two of the individuals that are there at the time. Um, I also they can read. They can read the room. How we can go in and kind of feel that kind of. They can definitely read the room.
yeah.
So if you've not protected yourself, you're just putting yourself out there for anything and everything to take advantage of you. And some of them can and will and make a sport out of it almost. And then I think the other ones that are kind of reeling someone in are doing it underhandedly so they can make more of a footprint, as far as maybe coming home with you and, um, you know, I don't want to say possession, but it can
Hitchhike?
go to that. I don't want it. I don't want that.
No, I
Uh,
don't either.
no.
I am perfectly okay with going somewhere
Yeah,
and doing that. But this is my castle, and
exactly.
I will not turn on a spirit box in my house. Um, I will not entertain. I mean, the only times I've ever like outwardly said anything has been to like, okay, dad, knock it off, or okay, mom, yeah, I know you're here. I will not entertain the idea of anything outside of that in my castle. I had an interview. This has probably been about a year ago. Sitting right here where I am at. I'm sitting here facing my two computer screens, and I had a gentleman and a girl on, and um, she had just gotten done relaying a story about how while she was living alone, she received a an old fashioned mirror, like the kind that I forget the specific the name of it, but they were made basically by like a liquid silver that would go
Mm,
on the type of mirrors that they get like an oxidation to them,
mhm.
and you can kind of see through around the edges and stuff. And she had gotten one of those, didn't know what to do with it, so she decided to hang it over to cover up this ugly electrical box that was in her hallway. So she hung the mirror over the largest power source in her house.
Ooh.
Um, and then she went on to tell me how she started having a nightly visitor that was doing things to her.
Oh no.
Um,
Oh no.
and I was struck by how matter of factly she was able to talk about it. And that was a little disarming
Mhm.
because it made me question a number of things. One, is this really happening? Two, were you inviting that?
Yeah.
Because of the matter of factness, and I'm not making judgment on it, but that
No.
was a weird component to the way she talked about it.
Right.
Um, After it was over with, and we were doing the post recording thank yous and goodbyes and everything, I'm looking at my screen, they're looking at me through their screen, and I saw a shadow cross over her,
Oh.
and at that moment,
Mm.
it was much later in the evening, so my entire studio was completely dark. All I have is backlights, and so I'm looking at my bright screens. So everything behind my screen is very dark,
Mhm.
and I see this head, all black, um, no real sharp edges to it, just kind of a. It was a head, and it kind of popped up right on the opposite side of my computer screens.
Oh.
And I popped back like this, and she says, "Oh, what was that?"
She saw it too?
And I said, "What did you see?" And she goes, "I just saw a bright flash of light, like on." She saw a bright flash of light on her screen, looked like it came from where I was at,
Uh-huh.
like it was in my studio. I never saw a flash of light. All I saw was this
The
dark thing
face.
pop up behind my computer screen. I'm
Mm.
telling you what, you want to talk about putting some salt down and doing some clearing sprays and some other vials of things that I've had friends of mine send me
Mhm. Protection
from the
prayers.
uncomfortable community. Um, that was no shit. I was like, okay, no, not in this house.
Uh-uh.
We're not doing
Uh-uh.
that. And
Mm-mm.
that freaked me out. That
Yeah.
was because I had confirmation because she saw a flash in her screen that looked like it came from my studio. There was not that happened here. I
Well,
saw the dark thing, but I saw the shadow cross across her while I was looking at her on my screen, and I was like,
ooh.
I don't believe in coincidences. And
No, no, that was definitely something happened there, and something came across, knew you saw it,
yeah,
and wanted to intimidate you. No, and what a lot of people don't understand is that spirits can attach to things, and mirrors are one of those things that they can attach to. Old pieces of furniture, even like an ink pen from Great Uncle Charlie. They can attach to anything. And when we go to estate sales and yards, I love antiques. I love them. Love them. I mean, I've got stuff behind me that my mother gave me, my grandmother.
mhm.
I found different places and I love them. I've never had any problem with mine.
I had an interesting conversation with, I believe it was Karen Tatro. I had done an interview with her some time back, and we dug down into the idea that throughout your life, what you do, where you're at, where you worked, my desk here, my table, I touch it all the time. I've got my arms on it, I've got my hands on it, I'm working on my computer, I'm editing, I'm doing all this. I spend a lot of time at this desk.
Hmm.
And what do I leave behind? So this desk is an old drafting table that was my grandfather's when he owned a tool and die business. So I thought, what a cool way to kind of bring that into my studio and make it my workspace. So, I did all the work on it and I refinished it and I got everything set up the way I wanted my studio. And it's like, what do I leave behind? I leave dead skin cells, probably like crazy on this stuff, right? And and if there's any part of me left on this, is that how items are haunted?
I
And
think they can be. I think the most haunted things are your favorite things. The things that, like, I have a collection of cat figurines. I've got different things like that. Um, I I don't pick them up all the time, so I don't think they would have any attachment whatsoever of me. But I can see where your grandfather's desk, all the hours that he put in, all the hours that you're putting in, the energy goes somewhere. It's never destroyed. We know that energy is never destroyed. It goes somewhere. So it just changes forms, right? So it can be it can leach into wood, it can leach into stone, and you're there. When I had the very first paranormal team that I was a part of, when they came down to investigate my mom and dad's old store, it was gutted. My husband had cleaned it out. It was all the utilities had been turned off a few years before. It was just a shell of a store. It was an old auto parts that they had at that location for, um, at that point, 40 years. And before that, it was an ice cream factory. Before that, Red Cross building. There was furniture stored, just different things over and over. Back in the 1800s, the basement was actually floor level. That was ground level. And then it just built up. The street built up over it. but that basement had been a turkey slaughterhouse in the late 1800s. The vats were still down there and everything. When the team came down to investigate, the only place in the entire building, upstairs, downstairs, uh, around anything, the only place their instruments lit up was exactly the spot my dad's chair sat the entire time. That was the only place. And I thought that was kind of incredible. So his energy was still there in that spot.
How
And
cool. That's
yeah,
very cool.
now that was it residual on that part? Maybe, but it did light up. So they got a couple of EVPs is why I started my EVP work. The first one was this strange holy mackerel that nobody in my family ever said. I think it was probably from the ice cream factory or something like that back before the 50s, 30s, and 40s, that kind of thing. But the other one was from the basement and it was clucking, gobbling. We had turkey ghosts.
What the heck? Animal ghosts. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I have to say, my mom passed away. It's been about a year, a little over a year. She passed not this past November, but the November before. And there's a specific bedroom in her house that she would always get changed and get ready for bed or get ready for the day. And her cats would always follow her, and they would go in there. And over the course of the last year that she was alive, two of her cats passed away, and the other one was still around. Um, I gave that cat to my daughter because she's a cat person, and she took it up to Grand Rapids with her, for the last year that she was around. And I had gone in that room to kind of start going through all of the stuff and to start getting rid of things that were just junk and try to figure out what the hell I was going to do with the stuff that I wanted to keep.
That's such a hard
And
job.
it is, it's, I don't wish that on anybody, but I was standing in that room and I audibly heard a cat meow so loud that, and so realistic that I I turned and looked down to the side of my leg, knowing full well that I was going to see a cat sitting there,
Yeah.
and there was no cat. There had not been a cat in the house for months. And it's a brick house. It's got very good windows. It's very quiet. It wasn't like it was outside, and I just heard it through the window. It was not that. It was literally a cat standing next to me, like where I
Mhm.
was at, and I was like, "Holy shit!"
Yeah.
That was the first time I'd ever had any kind of experience like that with an animal.
I think it's incredible. I my fourth book, my fourth book kind of got put in my lap. I because I was writing scary stories and about the investigations and different things, and this fourth one, God kind of put it in my lap and said, "You need to write a book about signs." And I didn't have a lot of information. I didn't have a lot of stories. I mean, my mom fell and saw my grandmother who had passed years before, and my grandmother shook her head at her, signifying it's not your time yet. You're going to be fine. Because mom said when she hit her head, she knew she was dying. But my grandmother showed up and shook her head. So I had that story, and I had something about my dad's chair, and things like that. And that's all I had. I had my cousin sent me a story, but then I thought I can't write a book with just three short stories and call it a book. So I put word out on Facebook and said I'm looking for signs of our loved ones, uh, leaving pennies, feathers, a song you hear that reminds you of them. Deathbed conversations where you walk in the room and your grandmother is talking to somebody that you can't see. Near death experiences, even our animals coming back. And I got stories from all over the country, even one from England. The girl from England sent me a story about her grandfather and his cat that had both passed and both visited her. And so it was an incredible experience. I I lost motivation. I was going to bring it out in 2020 and I lost motivation, kind of like everybody did in 2020. Didn't get it back in 2021. And finally in 2022, I started writing that book again and, editing the stories that I'd gotten from all over the country. And I was putting it together, making a really big dent in it. And then we lost my nephew. And that is coming up on his 2-year anniversary next month. He died. He was only 19 and a half. He was my mini me. I was training him to be a part of my team. He was going to be the videographer. And he was so fun. He would go to murder mysteries with me. He would do all this kind of stuff that Greg didn't want to do with me, my husband. So my mini me would go with me. And then we lose him to a horrible accident. And he's only 19 and a half. We were devastated. So again, lost motivation for that book. And it wasn't until after the funeral that I realized, oh, okay, I get it. I see why God put this in my lap. Not only is this kind of therapeutic for me, but it's therapeutic for his mother, my sister, my mom, who he was our world. He was just our world. And my husband Greg had even adopted him. He'd become more like a son to Greg. And so when we lost the light of our life, it's still horrible. It's still horrible. And we won't ever get over it. And whenever you lose somebody, even one that has been sick for years and years and years, and yes, they're in a better place, but darn it, we're still hurting. And so that's what this book is about. And I had so much people writing in saying, thank you for this book, that I've got a sequel coming out this spring.
Oh, nice.
So I'm hoping to have it out in May. I don't know if it's going to happen because I'm working on Mark's book right now, which is a cookbook. And his cookbook is everything from good recipes to recipes that you don't want any part of. It's like the good sister and the bad sister. The bad sister, he's going to even put a warning label. If you're squeamish, don't look at these. And it's things like haggis and all the stuff.
Yeah,
it's all back there. Yeah. But so that when I get finished with his book, mine's going to come out. But the Signs book has really been incredible as far as reaching out to people. And in the book, after the end of each story, if they wanted me to, there's a couple that said no, just the story is fine. But I've got in memory of, and the person that had come back to visit, or what the story was about, or like the last story in there is about my cat Whiskers that I lost. He was he was old. He was an old kitty cat. And he came back to visit me the day he was dying. And it was an incredible experience. So you can read about that. But there's everything in there from ghost dogs and cats to near-death experiences that are just incredible. Incredible what people have gone through and come back to tell you about. And oh man, I wish I could just tell you all the stories in that book because they're incredible. I'll just say that. So that fourth book is It's Not Goodbye, Signs from Beyond. And again, I've got the sequel coming out. all my other books are scary stories. So if you want to hear about the scary stuff, you can read the others. The third book I brought out, they're speaking. Are you listening? My most compelling EVPs, which we talked a lot about EVPs
Hmm.
today.
Yeah.
That third book was supposed to be my very first one, but I couldn't figure out how I wanted to do it. So I came out with just 23 short stories first in Whispers in the Dark, brought that out just to prove myself I could write a book. Got that out, got the fiction book out with Mark, and then worked on my third one. And what it is my favorite investigations and the voices that I've uncovered. And the cool thing about those stories is as you're reading it, you can go to elkvalleyparanormal.com, and there in the evidence section in the drop down menu is there speaking, and you can listen to all the EVPs in the book, and there's over 100. So
Fantastic. What a
got that
great
out.
tie-in. What a great
Thank
tie-in.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
It was
Um,
going through my head, and then I heard you start going that way. And I was like, this girl, I like her. She's smart. Yeah.
well, we're kind of feeding off each other. So you'll bring up something, and I like working with you. This is good.
Yeah.
This is
This
good.
has been a lot of fun. We're coming up on 2 hours here. I know you've got
Wow.
another,
I
I know you've
do. I
got
do.
another appointment here coming up shortly. So I think that's a great way to end this. It was on a positive note. Just real quick, make sure you let everybody know where they can find your books and your website and all that stuff. Just point everybody in your direction.
I am self published on Amazon, Cyn Shrader Hill, author, and there's 5 books on there at this moment. Hopefully, by the end of this year, there'll be 7 on there. We'll see. And if you have a story of a lost loved one or a pet coming back to see you or near death experience, anything like that, anything you can think of that involves signs, you're welcome to reach out to me. I'm still collecting stories. I'm going to probably have a series of these books. So if you don't hit it in this particular book, you'll get it the next time. So send me a story, Cyn Shrader Hill author at gmail.com. I'd be happy to read it. I'd be happy to include it. If you've got scary stories, um, the more, uh, spellbinding and dark or whatever, if you want to send me those, I collect those as well. So um, my last book is True Ghost Stories and Eerie Tales, Realm of Shadows. So that was some of my darker things. And my other dark book is going to come out in the fall around Halloween. So got that going on. ElkValleyParanormal.com is my website, and I'm on Facebook, Cyn Shrader Hill author, and Elk Valley Paranormal is also on Facebook. Please reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you.
It's been a fascinating conversation with you. It was a lot of fun. Not much downtime at all in between. We talk well together, so it's been a
I'm a
pleasure.
talker. It's
And
it,
I am too.
I have enjoyed you so much. This has been fantastic. Please stay in touch.
Oh, I will definitely. I've enjoyed this, and we'll definitely have to do something again. We'll have to collaborate again. Thank you so much. But it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. I'm so glad you reached out to me.
I've had a blast. I really appreciate you and can't wait to do it again.
All right. Good night.